$500,000 each.
129.95. Walt.
The technical part, there isn't anything that isn't tested. And you have that on a computer, and you program it or something. You have your criminal case. Yeah, I would have thought of that. I mean, you got it all there, He said, that's absolutely right. He says, if you don't have a computer today, you're finished.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, I assume we're just touching the equivalent of book titles for another time or two.
Yeah. I wanted to get down, I was thinking about this, get down to chronology, and then I can plug in some things that happened that I know you related to, and some things you may have related to. Does that make sense, just to go through a chronology?
Yeah, let me, I don't know, just for my head, I have to warm up to that a little bit.
Sure.
Let me just give 3 or 4 minutes each time at least of a couple of things that I think are important to my intellectual, using the word loosely, understanding. Okay?
Yeah. I'm just trying to make sure it picks up.
I think I mentioned last time the 50 years, tell me if I didn't, has bothered me no end, having spent time in the communist country and so forth, how we went 50 years and the biggest experiment the world has ever known, Didn't that say something like that?
Yeah.
The Cold War.
The Cold War, yeah.
And that it's over, and nobody's analyzing it.
Right.
What went wrong? Why? Crucial questions to me. Well, in my when I was in urban studies, I had probably the best job in the world. I taught a seminar a week, and I would spend every afternoon at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel lobby studying, reading, and I'm not an intellectual or a researcher. And the rest of the time I would spend...
The Ritz-Carlton lobby?
That was my library. There was no one there. I'll tell you about Paul Simon once. But I'm the only one there in this massive block-long library, And then the rest of the time I would spend talking to folks in Yugoslavian neighborhoods and black neighborhoods and stuff like that, especially Cabrini Green. But so the two dovetail with each other. I had studied Marx a lot, and I was hooked in with a handful of true intellectuals, I'm not one, around the world, led by my mentor, Jacques Ellul. I went to Holland once to spend a week with him. You can think of the name of the town. Not too long ago. And we could come back to that sometime, how it developed. It started about 30-something years ago, this process. But in a nutshell right now, and then I'll get back to the other part, became clear, thanks to a lot of folks. Let me make another comment. I'm not sure I mentioned this last time. To study the big picture, to study what is happening in the world, you see everywhere today, anybody with any common sense at all will say it's a global system. You cannot study the global system in any university or college in the world and make your grades and pass. As Hannah Arendt had said in her last lecture, in my words, she said, these are my words, of course, and they're pretty trashy, but going to Mars, Moon, and all in between, all research and development today, 100%, has the potential to improve man's quantity of life. Oh, I mean, I experienced it. I just finished paying $1,200 for some nuclear stress tests. But she also said something, and that's the key to me. That all research and development, and we're talking in universities, when you say research and development, you're talking every soft science or hard science. You're talking theology, history, everything today. You're talking English. All is by the numbers. All is by the numbers. And I'll come back to that. But she said, all this R&D will improve your life quantitatively and fracture you qualitatively. And that once you understand that, you really see it everywhere you go. You see it loud and clear. And it's not an anti-technology, anti-research, because I want my heart taken care of, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But you're paying a very, very dear price. And that price is not addressed. Period. Mm-hmm. We go into that some other time. But I want to finish on the university, that it's loud and clear. And everything I throw out here, I've been waiting for somebody to challenge, but they won't. They just don't want to hear it. You go to graduate school, you go to postgraduate school, you're learning more and more about less and less. And these are the people that run every country in the world today. The people who know an awful lot about less and less, the whole. You can't study the big picture if you're learning more about less. You can't study the big picture. It's impossible. You with me?
Mm-hmm.
What I'm trying to say. And on the other hand, when I say these are the people that run the world, they're called neutrals. But without the staffs, whether it's Republican, Democrat, or anything else, without the staffs who are not anything else but high-tech people, who are postgraduate people, first of all, they have to tell the politician, they have to teach them the language or tell them what different words mean. And a politician that goes against his or her staff for popular reasons or something, to get elected or something, is going to pay a big price because it will be inefficient in the long run. And in the long run, everybody wants efficiency. So I just wanted to throw that part out. And then I just want to throw a real big paintbrush out this morning. I did study the success of socialism a la Soviet style, in addition to studying Marx. I studied one concrete example for 15 years, and with documents that are hard to come by. And that is the victory socially, politically, economically of Ho Chi Minh. They won. Totally. I know, I got to throw another word. In all this reading and writing and talking to a handful of people, I became enamored with the importance of the word proletariat in Marx's definition. Proletariat is an uprooted person. He's in the city, in his little room, away from the time schedule of seasons and crops and growing, He's away from Saturday night dances. He's going to Ziegfeld Folly movies instead. You can read and tell us, his culture, his language, his family is finished. The next thing you know, he'll have his family brought up in modern day terms. An Arab in Israel factory will get a radio or a VCR and it's all over. And they'll all live in one room and be poor. And discover the word job, which they never heard before, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's a proletariat. And one thing that's very important for me to discuss is who is the proletariat today? Did Ho Chi Minh liberate the proletariat, or did he create more, and why? Did the Soviet Union create more? There weren't very many only 5% proletariats when the revolution was made. It was a peasant country. Wasn't supposed to happen there, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the definition of proletariat is very real. And I'd like to really spend some time on discussing the two new proletariats today, who are very different from the worker. The worker is bourgeoisie today, today we have two new proletariats, one being of affluence and the other one being the proletariat of misery, which we'll spend more time on. That could be a welfare mother, that could be 15 million immigrant families, etc. Very different from the proletariat of Marx's time. And that's why it shifted to the great Red Book of Mao, which was in every street in every city in the world for a short time. The Black Panthers had to memorize the Red Book. They had Red Book sessions every day, et cetera, et cetera. It was in Africa. It was in Cuba. It was everywhere. So Nixon went over. Then it was finished all of a sudden. But what I was just trying to put on the table, bold brushes. Got to remember how I want to say this. There are two things. Marx's stream of history, you go from the barbarians to slavery to capitalism and socialism, and then the promised land of communism. That's sort of simple, but it's sort of the stream of history, and it's inevitable. Well, that's not the case. What really is the case is we start with capitalism led to heavy industry, and this is a pattern that must be followed. And heavy industry has to be developed fully before you can have advanced, I don't know if that's a good word right now, but industrialization. You first have to have heavy industry developed fully. South Korea did it, now they're letting North Korea handle that, or Pakistan. And then after industrialization comes, I'm skipping a couple here, but basically these have to be fully developed. Advanced industrialization. Then comes developed countries with their high technology. You can't skip a beat. You have to have advanced industrialization before you can get into high-tech Silicon Valley stuff. Now, where does capitalism fit into that? Advanced technology, capitalism has a minor role. I think I'm going to hang back on this because I'm opening a can of worms here. But what I'm really leading to say is that capitalism is no longer the grinding wheel here of high tech. True, you have to have monies that you never even dreamed of in industrialization. I mean, but the argument will be that it's highly developed society that will create the proletariat, in which capitalism has a very small role in it. The proletariat of affluence, the proletariat of misery comes with, quick word here, restructuring, if you will. The higher developed the country is technologically, the more the unemployment will be, except for servicing the people that are brutalized by this advance, this quote progress. But I just wanted to kind of throw something out there.
No, that's fine.
One of these days I want to go back.
It's one of the things I'm doing is, I take notes too, so I can go back and look and.
Yeah, that helps. Probably.
I think we're going to need to. We got to work through something first, and then to go back and develop something.
Have some sort of form, maybe. Chronologically, we were already going back and forth a little bit time-wise.
Yeah. I'd like to get as straightforward as you can tell me one time through, and then I can fill in. But when and where were you born, and just straight on through.
Just like a history book, not thoughts.
Not thoughts.
Not little experiences.
No. Just this is boring for you, I'm sure. But
yeah.
Just.
All right, I was born in Tampa, Florida. 2923 Bayshore Court. Don't remember the phone. The house is still.
What's the date? December
29th, 2023. My family was beginning to be on its way down, but doing okay with the 21 crash. I had enough connections and assets to be all right, but not too good. I won't give you the stories, but my father had Thursday afternoons off, which is important to the children. Sundays.
And Sundays. Not Saturday.
He always took the children on Thursday afternoon, Sundays, somewhere. Then we gradually became poorer, and with the 29 crash, we were zeroed, bottomed out totally. And my life became very different after that. My father, as I mentioned, I think last time, spoke 7 languages, et cetera, but absolutely worthless as far as the job market is concerned. Absolutely worthless. So he split for Chicago.
Okay, hang on. What did your father do between, when you were 0 and 6? When he took Thursday afternoons, when did he take them off from? Do you know?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm pretty sure he was sort of a bookkeeper manager at Tampa Bay Hotel, which my grandfather built and owned, which was supposed to be the largest whiskey distillery storehouse in the country, but he wanted to have a hotel bigger than Peter O'Neill's, so he changed it in midstream to a hotel. Now it's a parking garage.
Okay, it was owned by your maternal grandfather.
Grandfather, yeah.
Okay. So he gave his son-in-law a job.
Yeah, which was totally natural. And I mean, it was all part of us. It was all, we're all one, fully one.
Yeah, no,
I mean, it was, I'm saying that, and it's not necessarily the case today like it was then. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I mean, the connotation's not the same today.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also, about that time.
How did he lose that job if his relative?
The hotel was bankrupt.
Okay.
Everything was wiped out.
So the crash hit not just your immediate family, but your
totally.
your grandparents.
Totally.
Well. Okay.
I mean, we own half the city.
Did it break Muggy?
Oh yes, he had a heart attack in there somewhere around my birth, or so not too far from there. You see, we're tempted to get into stories here.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
And see, I have documents at home on different dates, but it seems to me about the time that my father split was when, and we were zeroed out, that my mother's sister and brother's families moved in with us. So we had beaucoup children. And my mother became, I think I might have mentioned last time, up until as a young girl, my mother was sent to Europe. I mentioned that.
Right.
And now all of a sudden she was no longer an artist, but she was quite good at oils, charcoal, and she was no longer a musician. She was now the man of the house of 3 families. None of them had work. One's wife had died. My mother's brother's wife had died, and he didn't live there. Just the kids did. And Uncle Fritz and Tonanelli and their 3 daughters lived in one room. All in one room. I hadn't thought about that room. They all live in one room. The whole thing had only one bathroom. And
it was outside?
Huh?
Wasn't outside.
And Mama was responsible to keep the shit flowing, literally, in a system that had no septic tank and just flowed openly back behind the garage where our zinnias grew about 15 feet tall.
There was no sewer system?
And we didn't have a septic tank. We violated everything.
Your dad's name?
Otto Friedrich.
In your mind?
This is human interest, but I might forget it.
Okay.
Friday nights. This is given not just to be funny, but to remind you that this is a German culture of cleanliness and order, okay? First of all, we all had to go potty before we went anywhere in the morning. And that has not changed for me to this day. To guarantee our system is clean, all of us lined up on Friday nights and had syrup of figs, 2 tablespoonfuls. I want you to know that it's a guarantee of an explosion Saturday morning. But we would start the week all clean. That never stopped till I left.
You all literally lined up to take it.
Yep.
Mom and Dad as well?
I don't think so. I don't know. They probably did, but they didn't get in line.
What's your mom's name?
Francis.
Middle name?
I think Martha, I'm not sure. That I forgot. I'm sorry.
And she was a muggy.
She was a muggy and suffered severe asthma. And there's some human interest there like crazy, but we'll just save it. Now, my brother is 8 years older and 4 years older. They made their mark in high school. And I mentioned my oldest brother, but I'm doing my life chronologically. In all cases, I had to follow, and I wasn't. I skipped the first half of the first grade and all of the fourth. I skipped the whole fourth grade. Unheard of. Not because I was that smart. I was in the top group in school in the third grade, whatever that means, you know. But you gotta remember, this is Depression. No school budgets to restructure. All the desks and chairs were bolted to the floor, and there were 5 too many kids for the fourth grade for the number of chairs bolted to the floor. So, and there was space in the 5th grade. So they took the top 5 and put them in the 5th grade. And I can pretty accurately say that it's from that point on that I became an average student. It didn't make a difference the rest of my life.
It what?
Made a difference the rest of my life. No, a lot of stories and all that, but we'll move along.
So this, instead of being a top student, you moved down to average because they shoved you ahead so quick.
Whole year.
And do you mean by that it affected your self-esteem about how you saw yourself as a student, as a learner?
Probably. I can't answer. I don't know. I just wasn't. I mean, they were ahead of me. A year at that level, I think, makes a big difference.
Sure. Well, it's 5th grade. Dylan's in 5th. He's 11. A year then is a 10th of your life.
Yeah.
And that's a big chunk.
Socially, incidentally, I think socially as much as anything.
Yeah.
Because, and even athletically, but at any rate, move along.
Can I do one thing with you? Can I switch chairs with you?
Yeah. You see, if I don't tap on the table, I gotta move my chair.
That's fine. I don't care. I think this one's
We'll find out.
less squeaky. Yeah. No, I think about the little things as well as
well, I went to high school. I remember that.
Look, first of all, okay, you skip first and fourth. What do you have a lot of memories from your grade?
I have a lot of memories from the third grade. Very few from until the seventh. Then I pick up again.
Okay. Before the third grade, do you remember, what's, maybe you don't have to answer this now necessarily, but what's the earliest memory that you have?
Before the third grade.
Anytime. I mean, just the earliest memory.
Third grade, I remember several things. I remember Mrs. Switzer. I remember her reading a Daniel Boone type, a chapter, a Daniel Boone type series at the end of the school day, which I look forward to. I remember that we, in the third grade, did something no other grade had. We had a garden plot where we each had a row and could plant different things. And I remember that very, very well. I remember Dewey Hyatt, and Boots Klein, who were villains. And
Dewey Hyatt and who?
Boots Klein, who Boots was in my neighborhood, and I was scared of him because he would lose his temper all the time. And a lot of stories there, but they would trip the teacher when she'd come in and all kinds of stuff. And then they would, if she was to call the principal, they would go out the window and stuff like that. They were not very controlled kids. That's a lot of stories there. Before that, I remember, this is one, I remember going to the first day of school. Well, that's pretty far back.
Yeah.
In which we had the German, I don't know what these titles are called. It's like a big cone filled with all sorts of school supplies and everything. That's a German tradition. And I remember that.
The German what? A big...
It's a big cone.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Filled with all sorts. That's a German tradition. I kind of remember that. But I don't remember that much. After that, there are a lot of memories, a lot of stories, all kinds of stuff.
This may just be my curiosity, but if you think of something earlier than the first day of school, sometime, just bring it to my attention, because I'm curious about how far back people remember stuff.
Yeah.
And and sometimes it's you remember stories that people told you about yourself.
Well, I don't know exactly when, but you don't forget we had 3 girls my age, our same ages, living with us, and it had to be in that area. Cutout paper dolls were in the comics. Oh, I do remember reading the comics like crazy, but I played paper dolls like crazy with my sister, the girls living with us, my cousins.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course at age 11, now that brings back a couple of things, and we won't get into them, but I became pretty active, and with Joe Byers, who's now a multimillionaire, and a whole bunch of them, we used to play cops and robbers night and day with homemade wooden guns with notches, of machine gun type, pistol type, everything else, wooden guns, cut out notches, and cut up inner tubes for the bullets. You know what I mean? You stretch them and you have a string that goes under the notches. You pull the string and you shoot a barrage. And when we played, we're talking about oak trees and everything. We're talking about going from tree to tree like Tarzan. And I also fell out of the tree and broke one arm, dislocated the other, so I had both arms in a cast for a long time. A lot of stories, but I can't get to the chronological thing.
Well,
tons of stories. all have.
Well, that's a fairly significant thing.
And then,
you know how old you were when you fell out of the tree and you broke an arm, dislocated the other, and had two?
probably around Dylan's age. And we were already making tin boats and inner tube boats with sails. The tin boats are, you take a sheet of corrugated iron roofing and you bend them on both ends on a piece of wood and tack them and tar them. You got the picture?
So you fold it up into a box.
On both ends, and then you against a piece of wood, and then you tack them and then tar them. So
Okay.
you got a canoe.
I got you. Wood sides, tin bottom.
Now just one piece of wood at the end of the corrugated metal that you could bring the two ends together with. Give me a piece of paper.
Yeah, just throw it right there. Throw it right there.
No, I can show you better. Here's a piece of corrugated. So you get a little piece of wood right here, and you nail that to it. And you get a little piece of wood right here.
Oh, okay.
And then you tar both ends.
I got you.
Now we began to put a little brace here and put a little sail on it.
Okay.
And we let our little piece of wood be the rudder and the keel both. Now these things had a leeway of about 2 inches when you get in it from the water. When you sit in it, there's only about 2 inches from going under.
I got you.
Now we did put gallon cans in the bow and the stern of these things so that if it went under and trapped them, it wouldn't sink out of sight. Okay. Sometimes I'm not a mystic. How I live a lot of times in my life and how I survived, I can't figure out yet. One of them was when 3 of us took our tin boats and headed for Davis Island across the bay, paddling. And if you know Florida, you know what a squall is. And all of a sudden you can see the ripples on the water, and the next thing you know, you got monstrous waves. And,
what's the island?
Davis Island. You got monsters. You're not taking all this down.
Huh?
Why don't you just make an outline?
No, I am. But this is kind of how this.
Right.
And if I write the names down, then I can bring you back to it.
We went across all right. Got halfway back when the squall hit. I mean, when the squall hit, you can't see because of the monstrous waves. You can't see 10 feet, you know.
Mm-hmm.
We were immediately swamped. We panicked enough not to hang on to it. I mean, these things didn't float that well. I mean, they were almost still underwater there. And so the next thing I knew, we were on our own. Okay.
You lost the boats?
Lost the boats, and here we are. I mean, these squalls are like the worst storm you can imagine. Okay, for a short time. You know?
Mm-hmm.
And there's no way I thought any of us were going to make it. And at that time, I could really only swim anyhow underwater, which was all right, but there's a squall, you know. So I didn't know what I was doing. I can remember this so well. And I swam
Did
underwater.
you stick together?
No. I mean, it was every man for himself. I mean, at best, I didn't think any of us were going to make it. I really didn't. And I'd pop my head up, swim, pop my head up, and damn, if all of a sudden there wasn't a buoy, I could see a buoy. Of course, they're loaded with barnacles, you know.
Good.
And I made it to the buoy, and there was a rim I could hang on to that wasn't too bad. And God, the next thing I know, my 2 buddies were hanging on to it. I don't know to this day how we made it. We shouldn't be alive. Now we're still out there bouncing around like a cork. Somebody at the end of the pier had seen this thing go under, way out there. And so here comes a Coast Guard boat. My mother never knew this. Mom was a big mama.
Yeah, how old you were then?
Huh? I think I'm around 10 or 11. And I'm trying to place this because I'm pretty sure this was before I got sick. It had to be. So it must have been around 10.
So you were pretty independent. I mean, you had a lot of freedom.
Because Mom couldn't handle it. I mean, she didn't know. She didn't want us in the house. She didn't want our friends in the house.
Well, no, I understand, but I mean that's a lot of freedom for a kid to be able to go. You went out, and
oh yes,
she didn't know where you went.
No, and she's a very suspicious woman. Because I can tell you about
but this at 10 or 11. I guess I did that. I think, Dylan probably does it now too. Yeah.
See, I went one evening to the Davis Island private swimming pool. You got to remember, in Florida, you don't go swimming after September until June. Things close. At that time, Yankees weren't really down there yet. That wasn't a big thing. But here's his pool, and it was a warm night. And so we climbed over the fence and up the wall and ready to go in this locked swimming pool, which was a bit dirty. Somebody had seen us. This must have been 10 years old. I can just picture Dylan right now. Mm-hmm. And lo and behold, here comes 2 squad cars. I mean, my world, I think kids today might know what a policeman is against them, but I didn't, and they had us sit there, and God, I thought I'm going to jail. That didn't bother me as much as Mama. And after they scared the shit out of us, I said they were going to let me go. And I said, "You're not going to tell my mother." I can remember, not this time. And I appreciated the police very much that night. But I can remember, God, I was scared. All of us had stories galore like that.
Sure.
But now at age 11, this is a big point in my life. I think we don't know to this day how I got infected. But there was a big overpass filled with water, and we'd go swimming, which was stupid because it was polluted. And I had a little trouble in making the wall at once, and I gulped a lot of water. I know that. Whether this was the cause of it or not, it doesn't make sense because my counterpart, Martha, eventually got the same disease, sort of, and died.
Who is Martha?
She lived with us. She was
a cousin?
She was a cousin. Mm-hmm. They had 3 daughters, but they started with my age down. I went up with my brothers, okay? But I had gotten sick as a dog, and they took me to the Children's Memorial Hospital, which was a wooden structure, a big house-like thing. And this is Papa's in Chicago. And very quickly, it was discerned to be acute Bright's disease. Bright's disease is a kidney infection, and acute Bright's disease is for old people, and it's fatal. They had no antibiotics at this time. No problem today. And I started having convulsions. I remember the room I was in clear as the dawn. And convulsions, and I would go out of my head. And to this day, I cannot enjoy pineapple juice because all they would give me to drink was pineapple juice. But my family doctor, Dr. Grantham, turned it over to specialists, and then they gave up on me. And they said one more convulsion, and that would be it. And I had another convulsion. I didn't know all this, okay? This is all told to me.
Yeah.
I had another convulsion, and then I'm unconscious, okay? And emaciated and unconscious. And then they said, if I did live, we might not be glad I did. Surely I would be blind. A few other things thrown in, okay? And Dr. Grantham asked for permission to try something. He couldn't just sit there and do nothing. And they didn't have, I don't think they have plasma or anything, you know. And he took out how much, I think half my blood. I mean, a hell of a lot of blood. I can't remember the liters, how much or whatever anymore from even the story. And it's black as can be. It's black blood. And he replenished it with, I guess, saline solution water, you know, or something like that. But anyhow, I was in a coma for a week, and I came back, and then it looked like I might be blind. And then even when I gained consciousness, I couldn't see anything. I could see, but I couldn't see. There was right in the middle of my foot.